Hey guys, now that PoE 2 is done, now that the league is dead and nobody's playing, I finally got my Spark build done. So hey, something to think about when you come back to PoE 2 later. Been playing around with this a huge amount, all kind of combos. I had over 10,000 energy shield at one point, and was extraordinarily defensive, but my attack damage was not like this right here. Now that's not the hardest boss in the game. This is the Abyss boss. That is the Abyss boss for the league, by the way. That's it. That's as hard as it gets. So here I'm just going to run a tier 16. I'm just going to showcase how it feels on a relatively juiced up tier 16. Not really juiced up. It doesn't have delirious. It has like 7% delirious. But just going to show the play style if you run like, if you alch and go and just run. And of course doing it on a tier 16. Most of us do tier 15. Tier 16s are expensive. But I got the speed of this pretty good. I got a lot of cast speed, a lot of projectile speed, lots of projectiles. And then it builds energy. And then when you build energy, you cast on crit. You basically, as you crit, you build energy to cast Arc. And then Arc is kind of buffed up a little bit. So auto casts Arc that way. And then we use Spellslinger to throw a Frost Bomb, which adds elemental exposure. It used to do cold exposure. Now it does elemental exposure, so now it can be used on lightning builds. And then, of course, we're a Chronomancer! So we use Time Freeze and Temporal Rift. But it's mostly for time freeze because it's just fun. It just paralyzes them. It's just a paralysis skill. We use Blasphemy to auto apply elemental weakness. And the main thing was just try to get as much speed as I could. Try to make it feel like PoE 1 because PoE 2 can feel very slow, especially during the campaign. So really trying to juice up that speed. Here's the tier 16 boss. You throw the sigil on the ground. You attack, and then you do Temporal Rift to regenerate your mana. And then you start throwing the Spellslinger, and then you just spark them, and then it auto casts Arc. Alright, here's an expedition. It's the same map. I just ran the expedition. This can do rituals very well. This can do breaches very well. And if you're in an area like this, it's quite nice because the sparks are bouncing on the walls, and with Pierce, they can pierce infinite times so long as the duration of the spark has not expired. For a long time I was playing around with Pierce 3 versus Ricochet 3, because with Ricochet 3 you also get Pierce, but you don't lose the damage per enemy pierced. But you lose the projectiles, and so ultimately I changed that. Right there I just zoomed in, I'm just showing this is a fully 150 breach, fully max tiered Jetched fight. And I ran a lot of these. I find these just a really good showcase of the build. They're a lot like Minotaur back in PoE 1. And it's a relatively tough boss fight, and pretty good defense he has. Now, as you can see here, at one point there I time froze him, but even after the time freeze expired, look, he just slowed so much by virtue of being a Chronomancer that you can just wail on him. That's the best part of being a Chronomancer.
Nice.
Alright, so I had to try the hardest boss fight in the game, which is the buffed up, stronger version of the Arbiter of Ash, Uber Arbiter of Ash. A very expensive fight. You only get one try. If you fail this, it defaults back to the regular Arbiter of Ash fight. So you need to do it on your first try. And he's significantly tankier, much more defense. Otherwise the mechanics are identical. So I did not want to post this build until I was able to do Uber Arbiter of Ash, because that just shows, hey, this build is viable. Now, it's challenging, but I'll let the footage play out.
The fourth edict already burns for your grave turmoil awaits you. Behold, the burning horizon. Your affliction upon her will soon be released.
The winds bring fortune.
You get a little better drops. You get a little better drops on Uber Arbiter of Ash, but it's so much more expensive. Is it worth it? Usually not for farming. There's videos all over YouTube saying, hey, to farm, it's probably not worth it. What I'm showing here, I'm just showing a regular Arbiter of Ash just to show this build has no problem and can clear 100% of the time regular Arbiter of Ash if you want to just run those, because they're much cheaper and you get the same drop pool, you just have, you know, less drop chance of the really good stuff. Notice a Divine fell on the Uber Arbiter, and notice Ball Lightning skill. Even though I got a bad roll, it was 1 instead of 3. If it had been 3, that would have been a nice profit. But you get better drops on the Uber. But you get consistent non-dying on the regular. Alright, so here's my character right out of Burning Man, right? As you can see. Remember, the skimpier the armor, the better the defenses in any RPG. So now we're going to pop into here. I'm going to go over the gym setup and a little bit of the tree, but I'm not going to belabor it. Temporal Rift allows us to go back to a previous time state, so it's a very quick way to regenerate our mana. That's what we mostly use it for, but you can also use it if your energy shield is starting to drain, and I put cooldown recovery on that. Time freeze is very important. All of these are time freeze. We want to activate that at just the right time. Really, it stalls and freezes a boss. You want to do it on just rares and uniques. And with time freeze, we have cooldown recovery, prolonged duration, magnified area, rapid casting, and efficiency. We put efficiency all over the place to really help with mana burn problems. We put it also on our spellslinger. Spellslinger comes from our main hand weapon, and the point of spellslinger here is to cast Frostbomb and Orbit Storms in a single click without having to waste time separately, because Spellslinger insta-casts everything that's linked when enough energy is generated. So you can continue casting Spark without being stopped and having to stop and cast your Frostbomb or your Orbit Storms, and you can throw both at the same time, and you can throw multiple. Sometimes it throws multiple Orbit Storms because it generates enough energy to throw like 2 of these and 1 of these at the same time. Harmonic Remnants is because that's the whole point of these. Not only are these doing damage and applying elemental exposure from Frostbomb, it's also creating a Cold Infusion Remnant, which we pick up to buff our main skill Spark. See? Consumes a Cold Infusion if possible to fire many more sparks in a circle. On top of course, Sion's Temper, which has given us more projectiles. And then we use Pierce, by the way. Pinpoint Critical, because we don't care about crit damage bonus, only crit chance. And then another efficiency, that's our Spark. So that's being buffed by our Frostbomb. And then the Orb of Storms is giving a Lightning Infusion Remnant, which we grab, and buffs our Cast on Crit Arc. So that we build energy on crit, and then it'll send out Arc, which has this here, which gives us basically the same thing as Fluke, where we have between 40% less and 60% more damage, and then a little bit of recovery of mana cost on skill, but also this chance for more projectile speed. And then Boundless Energy, of course, on any kind of cast on crit, everybody's going to use that. Another Pinpoint Critical, because we're a crit build. Efficiency as well, so the arc doesn't burn as bad. We have a Sigil of Power, which is supported by cooldown recovery 2, magnified area 2, prolonged duration, rapid casting, and then second wind 2, so we can cast 2 of them at a time. Now you can just cast this, watch, you just cast it and then keep attacking. Even though it's coming from our offhand, it's coming from this guy right here. I just use this because it's easy. It's a level 20 Sigil of Power. And so with this, see, we're CI, so the mana cost converted to life cost. You couldn't even attack, but it still lets you attack, watch, bloop, because you can set skills so that they're only usable by a certain weapon slot. And it auto swaps. This is not something available in PoE 1. So you can you can throw this down only on this, and then just attack, and it'll auto switch to this, which is very nice. Speaking of which, here's the weapon. You can see this all in the POB, but you can see very good weapon. You want more damage as lightning, etc. Percent lightning damage, spell damage. Lots of plus to skills. We do the same thing on our focus. Energy shield recharge, we want faster start. Body armor, we want spirit. We have to have a little bit of spirit, and the other source of spirit is the amulet. And this also gives us plus to spells. Some of these things are a waste. You don't need percent increase max life on the amulet, for example. We don't need this fire damage to attacks because we don't attack. It's a spell build. But this ring has given us otherwise very good stuff. Mana regen, intelligence, and then we just got to cap our reses, you know. Not our chaos res because we're CI. And then this is a really nice ring I upgraded recently from, which is lightning damage, mana, cast speed, and then a source of dex, and then just stacking mana regen rate everywhere we can, as you can see. Very important, because we're triggering two different we have a double trigger on Spellslinger, and we have a single trigger on Arc with Cast on Crit. Now, Cast on Crit burns 100 Spirit, Blasphemy burns, I believe 60 Spirit. This is where we have Elemental Weakness going, Magnified Area, Cold Mastery because it gives us a +1. Mysticism 1, if you get better than tier 7 here, better Spirit, you can have Mysticism 2. This gives more spell damage. And then Clarity because we want more mana regeneration rate. I think that's everything with those. Let's see. Here I put enemies cursed take 10% increased damage. It really does come in handy. This Talisman of Egrin, that's what's in there. Recharge rate, of course. Shoes, we want just movement speed, recharge rate. Just stuff with energy shield. I had over 10,000 energy shield at one point, but I got the damage up recently. Right here, this is the only unique that we use as far as gear on our body. And I wanted to do cast speed and mana regen. I like the mix and match on it. It just helped a lot. And it gives us a fixed crit damage bonus, so we don't have to worry about scaling it. And then the belt just gives us the res we need. I've been sanctifying all this shit. Look at this. Some is corrupted, but like sanctified. I sanctified like all of these myself, wherever it says sanctified. Because look, we got a little bit higher than the initial roll. It's fun. Here's, well, of course, where we get Time Freeze, Temporal Rift. Sands of Time it has this teeter-tottering effect between area of effect and casting speed. Very helpful. Nice Chronomancer skill. And then enemies in our presence are always slowed by 20%. So between that and that, we're not as powerful as some other Spark builds like Witches, as far as just raw DPS, but you can just stall bosses and just wail on them, which I find fun. And then, again, I won't belabor the tree. I'm just going to go over like the main gems, or jewels, excuse me. Crit chance, energy shield recharge rate, faster start, mana regen. Same exact thing over here. Same exact thing. And we take things that help our triggers. That's something I played around with a lot. I played around with this build a lot and ended up settling on that. And then the other thing is right here. We do use a Heart of the Well, because why not? Because if we're lightning damage, chance for lightning damage with hits to be lucky, 1 in 4 times. It's rerolled twice. Very nice with lightning damage. Also gives us nice stun threshold. Although, of course, we do have a stun and an ignite charm, and then we have a slow charm. You know, you might not want to snow. You might want to freeze charm, but I really never get frozen. It doesn't bother me. And if you do, you have a pretty nice chunk of energy shield here, so you don't tend to die. Our flask is just we don't do the I did for a long time flask where you get charges on kill. Great for mobs and mapping. Really shit on bosses where you're not killing all the time. So switch that over as well.